Hello and welcome to our evening's talk on Ada Nield Chew, otherwise known as a Crewe Factory Girl, and we will explain a little more about why she was called Crewe Factory Girl today. Introducing myself, I'm Kate, and we've got Claire and Sue. Do you want to introduce yourselves as well?
Hi, I'm Claire. I'm part of the campaign group of trying to get a statue for Ada.
And I'm Sue Monroe. I'm part of the campaign group trying to get a statue for Ada Nield Chew, but I got a statue for Elizabeth Wolstenholme Elmy in Congleton.
Excellent. So let's start then. And what I want to say is if any of you want to write any questions down, because I know most of you will be watching this on record, then if we don't know the answer, we will find out for you. But please email in, and the email is Cheshire Women's Collaboration at gmail.com. But you all would have used that email anyway to get the link for this. So we're happy to explore any questions as we go along as well. So why is Ada relevant to us? And more importantly, what's her connection with Crewe? So Ada worked in a Nantwich shop, and let me make sure I'm reading it properly because everything is covering my screen at the moment. In the early 1890s, went to work at Compton's clothing factory on Bridle Road. So for those of you that are local to Crewe, that is the road where you would go through Baths, up Flag Lane Bridge, and then Bridle Road is kind of on that bottom road through Lewis Street there. Currently, not anything at the moment, but I know there's been a few planning permissions of it, but that is where Bridle Road is, because I know we get asked that a lot. Oh, sorry, and that is Ada, obviously. But beautiful hair, and I can't wait to be able to design what the statue's going to look like for Ada. Okay, so why do we want a statue of Ada? And if you read most of the work around Ada, it is around her letters. So in 1894, she wrote a series of letters which were published in the Crewe Chronicle, which is still active today. For those of you that are local to Crewe, it's our local paper. And she wrote to the Chronicle to expose the working conditions which the girls and women were forced to work under. And she signed them off anonymously as a Crewe Factory Girl. So this went on for a very long time, with nobody knowing that it was actually Ada that was writing the letters. In these letters, she complained about the charges for workers for their tea breaks. They had to pay for, the tea and the coffee and all the refreshments. And they even had to pay for the material that was required for them to do the work. So it says there, the unfairness by which work was allocated and the difficulty of earning a living wage. So they were paid for what they were making, and there was a lot of unfairness in terms of not being fair with what they allocated out and the men being paid more. So Compton's factory made uniforms for soldiers, police and railway workers. And 400 women in the factory were paid a fraction of what the 100 men were paid. And she noted that some jobs usually done by women were done by men when people come in to the factories as well. So they weren't even, praised for the work they were doing. It was hidden a lot of the time. And she complained about the 10-hour working days and argued for a living wage for women rather than a lingering, dying wage. And that's one of the kind of quotes that a lot of people recite when they're talking about Ada. And as a group, we've been doing some work and workshops around Ada as well. And one thing that we were saying, if you can imagine sewing in a dark factory for 10 hours under candlelight as well, and how you would feel about that. It was cold, that your eyesight would be going. So in some of the interactive workshops that we do, we really get people to try and get in that mindset of, the conditions that they were working under, as well as the unfairness of the wage as well. So her letters were signed, as I said, as Crewe Factory Girl. And what particularly that most of the group, I'm sure, agree is how articulate Ada was in her letters as well. And they did eventually gain support from the men's trade unions as well as the local MP. And we'll go on to explain a little bit more about that after. But what I'm going to do now is just stop sharing my slides and get up an example of Ada's letters, as I've got here from Nantwich Museum. So just let me move that and share a letter with you. And I'm not going to read it out, but I will let you have a read, and I'll move it slowly as we go. So just let me share it back for you. But these can all be found on Nantwich Museum's website. And as I say, you will get this presentation and it will be shared for you as well. But I'll just leave this on for a couple of minutes so you can get to read the kind of letters she was writing and how articulate she was.
I think for me, Kate, the letters, like you said, they're very articulate. You think of someone who's left school when they were 11 years old to sit down and write these. They're so heartfelt when you read them for the first time. You can truly hear what she's trying to convey, the injustice of what she's seeing, the suffering that she's going through and her colleagues are going through. They're just remarkable, really.
And they're well, we've said articulate, but they're not an angry letter, are they? They're well thought out as well. Whereas I think it was me, I'd just like brain dump and send it off. But it's toned well. It's definitely written to have a desired impact, to get people to think about it as well.
I think she was 24 when she wrote these, I think.
I'll just move it down as well. But she really paints the picture of what they're up against, doesn't she? And I think, you know, it really, can you imagine? I always think about this. Can you imagine working for the Crewe Chronicle and this letter drops? You would have to do something with it. Because I think they put their head above the parapet starting to publish them, didn't they, as well? But I think they knew that something had to be done because there was somebody kind of exposing this.
And again, you think of the time, we live in a very, very different time now. We're used to having the right to speak our mind, to write letters into newspapers, to write blogs, to write anything that we want as a woman, as a girl. You know, we're free to do that. But back then, it was very, very unusual.
And like you say, we're used to tabloids. It was nothing like that then, was it? You know, if you look there, Crewe, 1st of May, 1894. So yeah, we were talking a lot different to what we have now in our times. And then as well, this is a woman, you know, that's exposing, and there could be a lot of people that didn't want to do anything with it as well. But I think that as I mentioned that quote before, a living wage, ours is a lingering, dying wage. That, you know, we hear so many people saying about that, and you know, that's what we're talking about now as well, isn't it? We don't say minimum wage anymore. We're starting to say the national living wage, and you know, that's what she was asking for at that time as well.
Yeah, some of the language reflected in her letters, like you say, is what we're using again today.
Right, I'll stop sharing, and I say all the letters can be found through the link anyway that we're sharing on the presentation. So I'll just get that presentation back up for you and start sharing again. There we go. Okay, over to you, Claire.
Okay, so I would say Ada started her letter writing campaign in 1894, and although she did write them anonymously, her identity was found out. She did lose her job over it, but as her letters were being published, they did become quite well known in the area, and the local the Independent Labour Party had, I think, had a representative in Crewe at the time. I'm not sure if they had an office, but they had a representative who basically said to Ada, I will give you some work, or I'll help you get work afterwards. So all was not lost for Ada, although she did lose a job. She had other things that she went on to, and also became very popular in those areas. So one of the first things that she did was she became an Urbic District. She was on the Urbic District Council, which is in Nantwich Board of Guardians. So it was for that was it helped with the workhouse. So the Board of Guardians, they did the administration of the workhouse, and they also ran the hospital and the relief funds. I think in total she submitted 5 requests to them to change some of their policies. Only one of them was actually successful, and that was the one, if I remember right, it was the one where women, where inmates could talk to one another over their meal times. So previously it had been forbidden to have conversation during meal times, but Ada campaigned and she got that changed. So that was one thing that, again, she was very successful in. So next slide, please, Kate. So in 1896, the Independent Labour Party said to her, we've got the Clarion van promoting our work and socialism. So don't forget, this time women couldn't vote. So Ada was campaigning for suffrage, but suffrage for everybody. She wanted everyone to have the right to vote. Obviously, the Pankhursts are quite well known at this time. Ada, to begin with, they were on the same path, I believe, but as the Pankhursts became more militant, Ada stepped away from them. Ada, like I say, Ada believed in suffrage for everyone, and she felt some of the things that the Pankhursts were working on didn't represent the working class women. So Ada did a lot of campaigning for that. But the Clarion van, she went across the country and canvassing support for the party, for the Independent Labour Party at the time. So she was very well received on this tour. She had quite a reputation. People wanted to come and hear a woman speak about it. So I think it was 1896, she met George, but they married in 1897. Doris, their child, was born soon after. And I believe Doris didn't go, Ada did take Doris with her on her travels, but on the very first trip that she left Doris behind at home. What I've read, Doris was so distraught when Ada returned that Ada then vowed that she would never leave her behind again and took her. And I think Doris didn't actually start school until the age of 7 or 8, because she was on the road with Ada all that time, campaigning and staying in houses belonging to other campaigners. So they were quite well connected as a family. And they were quite well known in the Northwest and up to Scotland. So Ada was a driving force in the Women Trade Unions League, and she campaigned to improve conditions for workers in Staffordshire. She wrote quite a few articles as well for some Staffordshire newspapers and some journals at the time. So next slide, please.
And just to say, actually, so our February tour is on Ada, Doris, and the Clarion van as well. So there's
and if you imagine
follow on tour for
that caravan at the time, those conditions weren't great. You know, I imagine how cold it was. That's what I just keep thinking of when I hear about the Clarion van and what happened. But,
yeah, so there'd be more on that as well, because that in itself is fascinating of that time, isn't it? Okay,
so as I said before, Ada did campaign for suffrage. It was one of her main things, and she believed that getting the vote would help progress society and women. She just didn't think, she wasn't completely just focused on women, and I think a lot of people forget this. She wanted the vote for everybody, and she could see the benefit of everybody having the vote. So she was involved with the National Union of Women's Suffrage Societies, which again was the Pankhursts, and a lot of her roles convincing the society about the Labour Party. Again, there's a lot of, when you start to read into it, there's a lot of toing and froing with political parties at this time, whether people wanted to give them the vote, whether these parties wanted to give women the vote or not. There was a lot of the Liberal candidates were toing and froing as well at this time. So it wasn't a clear-cut thing. It's not like they had the backing all the time, 100% from people. So, yeah, so the Pankhurst as well. She did have a fallout with Christabel, again, about how they wanted wealthy women to have the vote. I think it was women of the age of 30 at the time. I'm sure Sue will know if that's right.
Yeah, it was a very turbulent time because the likes of Millicent Fawcett and the Pankhurst wanted to accept a halfway house, which is what they got in 1918, which was just some women over 30 who were property owners being able to vote, because Elizabeth was just like Ada. She was fighting for universal suffrage. And yeah, there was a famous speech that they gave that half a loaf, I think it was Elizabeth that accused them of offering the women half a loaf. And Fawcett actually said, well, half a loaf is better than none. And Elizabeth said, well, what about the working class women? There's not even a slice of the half a loaf that's for them, not even crumbs, you know. So it was a very turbulent time, and they were fighting all the time.
Yeah, it wasn't, and I mean, sometimes we read these things and you think, oh yeah, they got us the vote. It was such a difficult thing that they all went through.
Yeah. They were fighting each other as well as
yeah. So Ada believed women's suffrage was an essential preliminary to the industrial and social progress of women. She objected to the Women's Social and Political Union, which was led by the Pankhursts, which she felt was less relevant to working women and became too militant. Yeah. So while the suffragettes such as the Pankhurst and Emily Davison dominated the headlines, many less known activists fought key battles away from the spotlight. So Orla McCabe and Kirsty Bunting introduced Ada Nield Chew, a radical suffragist whose campaigning on behalf of working women in Britain far transcended the fight for the vote. And I think...
I was going to say also, do you want to do the timeline? I think that kind of goes through for people as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. I haven't got that one to hand with me now, her timeline, but
we can add it. Yeah, I will send it out with this as well. But yeah.
But again, I think same with Elizabeth, people forget what the suffragists did, and it's such a shame. It's one of the things, she's such an inspiring woman, that we need to remember her, really, and we need to be thankful for what she did and what Elizabeth did as well.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, which leads us on nicely to some of her other work and why she is so inspiring to all of us, really. And I always say to people, from my point of view, I think she was very much a forward thinker, wasn't she? In a lot of ways. And I guess for us, we don't see that as much because we forget that we're talking about 100 years ago now. Like you're saying, we don't perhaps understand how difficult it was. What fascinates me is how they created such a movement without social media, without mobile phones. You know, yet we can't get as many people to drive some of the campaigns now with social media. You know, they really captured a movement, didn't they, at the time? So again, we've got the radical maternity and the problem of married working women. And when I read things like this, it literally could be today, couldn't it? So it's still very similar topics that we're talking about. But of her many achievements, Ada may have been proudest of her contribution to the development of welfare support structures for working mothers and their children in the north of England, which would, she hoped, open a new and glorious field to work to women in which their special sort of human genius would have scope for development. And it says here, Ada was adamant that in order for women to live dignified and healthy lives, they must be economically independent. And it's that sentence that I think literally, you know, could be today.
Yeah.
And she recognised that this was near impossible for working mothers. Such a great way of thinking forward, wasn't it? You know, that she could recognise this, and how she wanted to do it for all women as well, really, you know, inspires me. Ada advocated the need for nursery care for all babies and working women to be paid for. She suggested by levying additional taxes on all incomes of over £1,000 per annum. And these nurseries, she specified, must be run by trained mothers who would be providing a state service of high rank. It blows my mind that that is what we're
Still
seeing on the
trying
news
now.
at the moment. Yeah.
She was so forward thinking.
Really, really great, isn't it, as well? In one way, and absolutely so upsetting in another. Inspiring for Ada, but you know, we've still got a big fight to go with this, haven't we?
Come on, yeah.
So Ada's vision about the welfare system and free early years provision, and like we say, with under the Sure Start system, they're all words and labels that we're still hearing now as well. So you know, we have a lot to thank Ada for, absolutely, and we've got a lot to thank, you know, all of our women in history, hence our series of these talks, really. Okay, so oh, don't want to skip that. You know, Ada virtually kept going, and you know, was always a doting mum as well. So, practical pacifist, refused to participate in war work of any kind. Which again, I think is that honour, isn't it? That she, you know, she really, really kept to her strong beliefs. And she opposed the National Union, I can never say this, of Women's, what is it?
Suffrage
So,
Society.
yeah, I can never remember the word society. Suspension of the fight to women's vote in order to concentrate on supporting the women's efforts. Instead, she joined the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. And in October 1914, Ada led the National Federation of Women's Workers. It's such tongue ties, these are, aren't they? And the Women's Labour League to the Rochdale Health Committee, convincing the local authority to establish health and maternity centres for working women left to support families on the home front. And a year later, concerned for the sufferings produced by wartime unemployment, and she successfully established a relief committee that doled out food from vans to Rochdale mothers and their infants. You know, that is today's modern day baby banks and food banks, isn't it?
Yeah,
really. Ada continued her campaign between the wars. However, she was also a businesswoman, running a series of successful rag, textiles and health food stores. And I love this bit about her because you don't see this much about Ada, see what she went on to do in later life. This entrepreneurial spirit had been evident even at the age of 17 when Ada ran her own milk round. So you know, she's just absolutely amazing, and this is why, you know, her lifespan needs to be taught in schools, really, to inspire others, and that's part of what we're working towards as well, isn't it? As we've got here, she travelled the world before dying age 70 at her home in Rochdale with her devoted daughter Doris, and our series of talks, as I've mentioned, will go on to explore Doris, who is equally as interesting as her mum, but I won't spoil that for you at the moment. Okay, so I'm sure you will agree, you know, Ada deserves a statue, and that's what we're working towards. So Ada's name and picture is one of the 58 other women's suffrage supporters that are on the bottom of Millicent's statue in Parliament Square, which was unveiled in 2018. And they're all very lovely pictures, aren't they? They're very clear. I should add it because I've got the picture, so I might add it to this presentation actually. But if you ever go to London, it's well worth going to have a look. And my kind of ambition is to do talks on all 58 of them women. Because I think they've all got their own story to tell, haven't they? And a lot of them aren't mentioned as much as perhaps they should be. So who are we and what are we trying to do? So we are a charity, very nearly. So we have got a board of trustees and the charity name is a statue for Ada. Should you want to find out more about the whole statue campaign, that's the website. She's also got her Facebook page, and should you be inclined to, we would love donations towards our crowdfunder as well, and that's the link there. So do you want to do a little bit about Hazel, Sue, and what you know of Hazel? I mean, your beautiful Elizabeth's on this slide.
Yeah, Hazel, I found out about Hazel in 2018 when I saw a programme about her on the telly called The Making of Our Emmeline. And I just started the campaign for a statue for Elizabeth. And I watched the programme and saw everything about her. I thought, that's amazing. I contacted her and she came and stayed with us for a couple of days and had a look round, learned something about Elizabeth and wanted to do her. Do her, sounds nice. Yeah. She invited us to the unveiling of our Emmeline, which was absolutely wonderful. But she is obviously a feminist sculptor, so she's perfect for making these women's statues, which are very important. Only 3% of statues are actually named women in this country. So Ada and Elizabeth and Emmeline all fit into this new wave of trying to rebalance that. And Hazel has actually made 2 of the women, and she's also made the Cracker Packers, which are in Carlisle, which are outside the factory that makes, you know, tuck crackers, that kind of thing. And that's a lovely thing. She also made Nigel Gresley, who is outside King's Cross Station. He designed the mallard. Yeah, so she's done quite a few other statues. So our statue will fit in it with her work. So she'll be attractive to people who are interested in Hazel's work. She'll be attracted to, by people who want to see women's statues, and she'll be attractive to people who want to see suffragist statues. So Hazel fits in perfectly with the ideal that we're looking at.
So our next phase in this is to have Hazel come over. I think it'll be in the new year now. And what we want is the community to join us to, you know, share ideas of what we would want that statue to be. So for those of you who are really interested, then keep an eye out because we'll be sharing when that is. But it'll be quite early on in the new year. And you just, you know, look at Elizabeth and Emmeline, the detail she does is beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely beautiful.
You know, just you do feel, I always look at the, you know, the blouse. I don't know why I'm pointing, you shan't see where I'm pointing at, but the blouse of Elizabeth does look like it's blowing in the wind, doesn't it? I think all that detail.
And Emmeline's coat, how it hangs, you know, free of her bodies. I just think it's amazing. And there's such movement in her work. You know, Elizabeth looks like she's rushing down Bridge Street to tell somebody off. Wonderful.
She does look like she's moving, doesn't she?
Yeah. And it's the same. I mean, look at the passion in Emmeline. She's stood on that chair. Wonderful.
And they tell a story themselves, don't you? Like you say, that's what's important.
That's what Hazel says. She tells a story in bronze, and she certainly pulled it off with Elizabeth and Emmeline. I'm sure she'll do the same for Ada.
So the other thing, for more information and more meat on the bone of what we've spoke about, is our touring exhibition. So it's currently in Heritage Centre in Crewe. And I've just seen a little note in my diary that I need to go and pick it up on the 11th of October, and it will be going to Nantwich Civic Hall. for a while. And then after that, I can't remember the rest of the dates, but I know that it is going. So it will be in Sandbach Library. It will be in Sandbach,
Congleton,
Congleton, I think maybe
Alsager.
Alsager Library. Yeah,
Yeah,
it is Alsager, yeah. And then we've got it for 2 days in the new year at Freeport, or some of you might know it as Talk Pits. It will be the whole of March at Cheshire College. So it will be there for Crewe Women's Day, International Women's Day celebration. It's then going to Crewe Library, then the Market Hall in Crewe, and then we will see where it starts, because that will be then virtually 2 years of it touring. But we can, all three can say it because we've not put this together. It is a beautiful, very interactive exhibition that's already been touring for a year, and people are still going to see it and visit it. It's particularly nice if you are from the Cheshire area and you know some of the streets in Crewe, because you can point out where things were, and there's lots of local connections as well, so that's well worth it. But all the dates are on the website, or will be. I've just got one more date to finalize, and then they'll all be on there. And this is something that Crewe Town Council, for those of you that perhaps work in guides, schools, social groups, this is an educational toolkit that's been done from Crewe Town Council. Literally, because this is how I always find out, I Google Crewe Town Council Ada Nield and it comes up. But they're very good toolkits that you can use. For more interactive kind of education sessions, I'm one and Sue is one. We have Ada ambassadors that can go into schools and do like art, isn't it really, art and performances around Ada as well. So if some of you want to engage your younger generation to do that kind of work. And finally, this is very much hot off the press, we only saw this last week. This is Ada's blue plaque, which the Heritage Committee from Crewe Town Council have commissioned. So it's, again, as Sue said, 3% of statues are females, virtually the same percentage for blue plaques as well. So this is great that this is another female blue plaque. It's not been put up just yet. They're working on getting a plaque. So we can't give a date because I think that they need to establish all the logistics, but it's great to be able to show you that is the actual plaque now. We saw it ourselves, didn't we, at the Heritage Fair 2 Saturdays ago. And our next one is copying what Sue did. We would love to be able to see if we can have some of the new estates named or around Ada Nield Chew as well. So I think that is the last one. Yep. So these are the other talks we've got. Like I say, I have got them planned right up to the end of March, but these are the ones coming up till the end of January. So we've got one on Gwyneth Dunwoody, who is an MP, Labour MP for a long time in Crewe and Nantwich.
A brilliant woman, Gwyneth. Yeah.
Very feisty, wasn't she? Yeah. And we've got Dunwoody Way in Crewe, so we have got that far. I've been to this talk. This is Violet Hamlet, and she's probably not in the history books as much as some of the others. She was a wife of a factory owner in Winsford, but has her own tale to tell. And again, very, very great female role model. So that's in November. Sue is going to do a talk on her very own Elizabeth. And then we couldn't do these kind of talks without Hazel, the importance of women's statues, because that's what our campaign is all about. And there's the email should you want to register on some of the others. I know somebody's emailed in and wants to do the full series, so I will sort that out as well.
I do too. I'm particularly interested in Violet Hamlet. She's new to me, and Hamlet was my mother's name. That
Was it?
my mother's maiden name. Yeah.
I
So
know a lot of hamlets in Winsford. I keep meaning to share this in the Winsford groups as well, actually.
yeah, yeah. Well, my mum's family came from Cheshire, but Stockton Heath, Warrington, over
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Shaftesbury, Warrington that way. Yeah.
So February is the one, actually, as I've said, with Ada Doris from Mid Cheshire. No, I always say that, don't I? Mid Pennine Arts charities. That's February. Then in March, we've got one every week. So we've got Helen Pankhurst, Dr. Helen Pankhurst talking about Sylvia Pankhurst. We'll have one on Emmeline Pankhurst, another one on Ada, because hopefully we can update of the things that we're up to. And hopefully Emily Davidson and Emily Williamson. So Emily Williamson is the founder of the RSPB. So yeah, that will take us through. It's a lovely series.
It is, yeah.
And my aim is, as one falls off, I will add another one to the end. So we keep going and having at least 6 months ahead
Put them
of
back
us.
again. Put them back again. Take them in every 3.
But again, if there's somebody that that if you're watching this, and obviously you're watching it because it's an interest, if there's somebody you would want to do a talk on, or you would want to know more about, and maybe ask us and see if we can find that link for you as well. So I will stop recording now, and hopefully that's been quite informative for you. So thank you, everybody.
Bye.